Brigade wants to welcome our candidates. You will have a 5-minute opening, and then we'll have a 10-minute answer and questions from the audience, and then a 1-minute closing.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Katie Sawyer. I'm not Derek Schmidt, unfortunately. However, I am Derek Schmidt's running mate as Lieutenant Governor on the Republican ticket. So thank you for being here. I will, as a Central Kansas person myself, I will vouch for the Granny Brigade. When I think of the Granny Brigade, I think of them standing on the overpasses of 135 in the fall of 2020, waving their flags on Saturday mornings, and they were a sight to see. It was really kind of very motivational, and I know they put their weight behind the candidates they support, so I can vouch for the amount of good work that they did for the state of Kansas. So I am a McPherson native, born and raised, and now a wife of a 4th-generation farmer and rancher back down in McPherson, Kansas. I have 2 little boys that I hope one day are the 5th generation of our family to come back and farm and raise cattle. So making sure Kansas is better tomorrow than it is today and better in 10 years than it is now is something that is very near and dear to my heart, because I hope that this state is prosperous for decades to come. I currently serve, now in a part-time capacity, but for the past 5.5 years have worked for Congressman and now Senator Roger Marshall. We've always had a presence here in Salina. We currently have an office on Santa Fe. So I've gotten to know the Salina community and the leaders of this community well. You guys have great things going for you, as well as the community and business leaders in all 105 counties in this state. One of the opportunities I've been afforded by the senator is to get to know the people of Kansas and all parts of Kansas. And that's been a great opportunity, and has one that allowed me to learn a lot about the state, what's going well and what's not going well. And if you listen to our current governor, she'll talk about, low unemployment rates, and we got these jobs, and that's fine. But when you lift the hood of what's really happening in our state, the numbers aren't quite as good as she wants you guys to believe. And I think you guys can see some of that evidence really well. That starts with high gas prices. That starts with record inflation. More specifically here in Salina, I know finding good help is nearly impossible. All of your major employers across this city have help wanted signs, have, enticement, sign-on bonuses. We cannot find the labor we need. Part of that is due to the fact that Laura Kelly shut down our state in March 2020. She killed off small businesses. She sent people home. She kept people home through allowing additional federal unemployment assistance through spring of 2021, and that gave people no reason to go back to work. And now our employers are suffering, and we're suffering because we don't have the employees we need to allow our employers to get back to full productivity. Our family income, the average household earnings in Kansas is lagging behind national averages. And in 2021, we actually lost people in the state of Kansas. Thank you. Additionally, as a mother, I want to talk about our schools. My kids go to public school. I'm a public school kid. I believe in our public schools. I believe our teachers do good work. My mother was a teacher and an educator. But we look at what's happening in the outcomes in our schools, and something's not clicking. We've fully funded education now for the past 2 years, and Derek and I will continue to fully fund education. We need to have a conversation now about the quality of education and what we're allowing our kids to learn and the outcomes that we're seeing in our classrooms. And I think they're falling short. They're falling short for our kids. In the end, they're falling short for our employers, because if we're not educating our kids correctly, then we aren't producing young men and women who are prepared to go into the workforce, and that then caveats back to some of the workforce issues that I think we're seeing out there. So I think we need to work with our teachers. We need to talk about education. We need to talk about the outcomes. We need to make sure that we aren't indoctrinating our kids in any way with things that our teachers should not be talking to our kids about. I believe that morals and values should be taught at home by the parents, not by our teachers. I don't think anybody should ever be telling our kids that they are bad, or they should feel bad about who they are or what they are. Our kids are good kids, and we need to allow them to be kids, and we need to leave the moral teachings to the parents, not the teachers. Finally, I want to talk about the moral compass of our state administration and our governor, and I'll make this quick. I think you guys all saw the governor's response to Saturday's Supreme Court ruling. And I think you guys have all seen that she does not agree with me and probably the rest of you guys in here when it comes to men or boys being allowed in women's sports, when it comes to allowing our parents to have a role in our kids' education system, and when it comes to pro-life decisions. She's not a governor that aligns with my values. She's not a governor that I believe aligns with your values and most Kansans' values. Thank you. Okay.
Now it's open for 10-minute questioning. Any questions for us?
You guys are easy.
Derek Schmidt stand as far as what just got passed in the House and the Senate as far as the Second Amendment goes. Do you guys support what happened, or the gun control?
Oh, the package that was passed at the federal level. Okay, I'm sorry.
How will Kansas stand up to that?
I can't speak directly for the state legislators here, but what I can say is Derek Schmidt has been and will be always pro-Second Amendments. I think what we can add on to that is the Supreme Court ruling that we saw last week that batted down New York State's restrictions on concealed carry. That was a move in the right direction, and there should be no infringements on our Second Amendment rights, point blank.
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
What about transgender bathrooms in our school systems?
I don't believe it should be allowed. However, we are seeing the federal government use new and different weapons, most recently funding for our school lunches to feed our children as a way of forcing our public school systems to allow transgender bathrooms and to allow all sorts of interactions with our children that we don't believe should be happening here in Kansas. And Derek Schmidt signed on with, I think, 30 other attorneys generals across the state and several governors to send a letter to President Biden to say, no, this isn't what we stand for. This isn't how we're running our public schools, and you certainly should never be using money intended to feed children to push your political agenda through our public school system.
Question in regards to the Department of Education.
Yes, sir.
The Department of Education.
Yes.
Is, what is your belief? Can it be abolished altogether and the state legislators demand they be given the right to education? That way parents have better control over what their kids are learning in school. And in regards to union dues, teachers' dues and such, that's all. Those dues go to the Democrat Party. As a conservative and Republican, I can't see my taxes going to further fortify the Democrat ticket, and you get this indoctrination of the kids.
Sure, yes. Education decisions are best made at the local level. Point blank. I think that goes from curriculum up to any number of decisions that a school district wants to make. We are fortunate here in Kansas to have hundreds of unique and different school districts that that serve kids in different ways as they are allowed to do so. And so my kids personally, we made the decision to put our children in a small rural school district because we believe that that district aligns with both our lifestyle and our values. And so because we can directly elect our school board members, we are allowed to have a direct say in how our school board and our school district is run. I should caveat that with the good work that the state legislature did on allowing the Parents' Bill of Rights, passing the Parents' Bill of Rights, and allowing our parents to have more of a say and an interaction with what's going on in their children's classrooms. I think that's a good thing. I communicate with my son's teachers almost on a daily basis. I think that's good for both the teacher and the parent, and the student wins in the end. And so I think the greater number of decisions that we can allow our local school districts to make, the better. Yes?
Another recent court decision on Maine on school choice.
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate? Derek Schmidt supports school choice in Kansas.
Yes, and I think he saw that as a good decision by the Supreme Court that you're referring to there. I think we should be allowing our children and our parents to have a decision on whether their kids are educated and allowing those dollars to move to those different different systems. I will say I don't think you know, I think the public system is good and it serves a lot of students, and in some counties that's the only option they have, so we have to keep our public schools healthy, but allowing our parents to have a decision on where their kids are educated, I think, is important. Way in the back.
Will Derek Schmidt get control of the Kansas Highway Patrol's upper brass and all the stuff that has came out in recent years with Colonel Jones and all of his allegations that he has against him?
I have only heard bits and pieces of what you're referring to, and I know when Derek is elected governor, he would obviously look into anything and any foul play that is going on with the highway patrol system.
Yeah, the Kansas legislature worked really hard this last session to pass a bill that made vaccine and mask mandates, banned them in Kansas, and Laura Kelly did not sign it. Is that something that Derek would sign?
I haven't talked to him specifically about it. I believe, I mean, I think he's supportive of allowing our kids to go to school without having to have masks on and having to be vaccinated to go to school. I think that's a parent's decision.
Would Derek Schmidt be in favor of maintaining funding for Medicaid expansion in the state of Kansas?
Not as it stands right now, no. Not in favor of expanding Medicaid. That, yeah.
Well, it's expanded now. Would we stop that?
So, are you talking about like the Medicaid expansion that, you know, some members of the state legislature and the Democrat Party has pushed?
Governor Brownback lost $1 billion, $1 billion, and spent $2 billion on having private insurance companies do that instead. So it put us $3 billion in the hole immediately.
I can't speak to what Governor Brownback did. What I will say pretty clearly is, as it stands right now in its current proposed form, Derek Schmidt would not be supportive of expanding Medicaid.
But I figured. Next.
Squeeze in here. Yes, ma'am.
What do you see as the number one top priority that your office would see as your first priority?
I think there'd be several, obviously. There would be several changes we'd like to implement. I think one of the first things we'd like to do is clean up our state agencies and make them more accountable to the people. Working in a federal office when Laura Kelly shut down our schools, shut down our churches, shut down her government and sent everybody home, there was no one to answer the phones. Did anybody here have an unemployment problem? Did you ever get a hold of anybody at the Department of Labor? No. But if you called our office, you could probably get a hold of somebody. We can't solve the problem for you, but we answered the phones. We showed up to work every day of this pandemic, and her agencies did not. They still haven't gotten the Department of Labor problems completely under control. But one of the first things we are going to do is we're going to clean up our agencies, make sure that the budgets are right size, make sure we're not running unnecessary and redundant programs, and make our agencies responsive to the people of Kansas. If you get on her website right now, and you get under her customer service tab, they're still not allowing people to come see state employees in person. You can walk into my office in person. You can probably walk into the council member's office in person. You can go see your state reps in person. You can't see your governor or her representatives in person right now. That's a problem. So that would be one of the first things we'd change, is we'd make sure our agencies are responsive to our people.
With the whole value in both thing going on right now, Kansas is basically the murder capital of the Midwest. Where does Derek Schmidt stand on, does he look to outlaw abortion or just restrict abortion, or where does he stand on that?
The first thing we have to do before we can talk about any of that is we have to pass the value of them both amendment on August 2nd, point blank. Without that amendment intact, we don't have any power to do anything when it comes to regulating abortion. So we can't have that conversation until we do the hard work and we make sure value in them both is passed on August 2nd. Anybody else?
Would your office remove critical race theory from our curriculum? I know a lot of people think we don't have critical race theory. I know here in Salina they'll deny that they teach it, but the tenets are definitely there.
As I said in my opening speech, whether it's critical race theory or whether it's just kind of passive language about making kids question who they are or feel less than because they were born with means or they were born of a certain race, none of that should be in our classroom. Our classroom should be about nuts and bolts lessons and curriculum that our kids need to be functional adults. And none of that is necessary to raising functional adults. So by whatever name they're calling it, it shouldn't be in our schools. It should be that those are lessons that need to be taught at home, not by teachers. Well, thank you all for coming out and for your patience and good questions. I think we've talked about a lot of the issues, and we've brought to light the challenges facing Kansas, the opportunities facing Kansas. I think we can all believe that we're going to have a Republican Attorney General, a Republican Secretary of State, a Republican Treasurer, but we need a Republican governor to make sure the work is done. Both senators sitting down here brought up numerous pieces of legislation that the legislature worked hard on and got passed through both branches, and unfortunately our governor did not sign. Laura Kelly has vetoed more pieces of legislation in her 3.5 years in office than any governor before her. So don't let her don't let her tell you guys that she's middle of the road. She's not. She's extreme, and she's not what Kansas stands for. We need to make sure we have leadership at the top that is conservative and consistent with the values of this state, and that is Derek Schmidt and Katie Sawyer. Thank you guys.